Welcome to What's Your Mount Rushmore podcast with hosts Mark Duval and John Hanson.
Are you kidding me?
Two old friends and knuckleheads discussing and covering their top four choices for any and all topics, making up their Mount Rushmore selections each week. Nothing is off limits. As you listen, remember we always want to know, what's your Mount Rushmore?
It's a very common tale.
Well, maybe for you, but I was in a band and we still have a hit record.
Yeah, you do. One-hit wonders. It's a very common tale.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back. It's another fabulous episode of What's Your Mount Rushmore. Thanks for joining us. This is John Hanson.
Wow. Nice flamboyant open. I love it. I'm the other host. I'm Mark Duval. Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Mount Rushmore. Pretty excited about this one. I am stoked to welcome today's guest. I've known this dude approximately about 40 years. He's been on the radio for over 20 years. He's a North Minneapolis native, same side of the tracks as you, Hanson. So I'm sure you both have some knife fights you can talk about later.
Oh, yeah?
He's an Austin, Texas legend. He's a music aficionado and an authentic MC. He's the host of the Kelly Jordan Morning Show on Wild Country 99 in St. Cloud. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you Kelly Jordan, also known as Boogie.
Ah, yes.
Love the nickname, man.
Yeah, that was one of the better nicknames I ever had. That stuck. That people in Austin still call me that.
John, you know who gave Kelly his nickname Boogie when he was on the radio in Austin, Texas, was an old employee of Yours and I's, Shannon Paul.
Oh, really?
That's
Shannon.
who gave him his nickname.
The small world, man. Small world.
Well, that's
Yeah,
cool.
I didn't realize that until recent. He posted that because he went to the Minnesota State Fair and like ran into Shannon, and they had a photo taken together. And then I didn't know that he like publicly acknowledged, here's the person who gave me my nickname. And here I'm like, oh my God, that's Shannon.
Yeah, she was down there with Tony Fly, and then they brought me down, and yeah, that's it. The rest is Boogie history.
What's crack-a-lacking with the cars? Let's check the traffic.
I stole that from Tony Fly. Half of my show down there I stole from Tony Fly. But anyway.
Well, and so here's the thing. We've had a few guests on in past episodes, and I'm really excited about this one just because I know Kelly and I know how important music is to him. Like, I really believe it's his lifeblood. And so when we pick this topic, which is one-hit wonders, and that's what we're going to be discussing, is our Mount Rushmore, our top 4 examples of our own personal Mount Rushmores that represent one-hit wonders. And dude, you're the perfect fit for it because you're, like I said, you're an authentic MC.
The problem is with doing this episode is I agonized over my picks, and I'm not even happy with the 4 that I picked. I'm like, dang it, I could have done so much better.
Welcome to our world.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. That's truly every week to week. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. You do feel a little bit of the pressure when you're publicly putting out 4 picks that represent your interests, your own personality, your preferences, you name it. So I can't wait to dive into this. So that being said, Mr. Kelly Jordan, what is your first pick of a one-hit wonder on Mount Rushmore?
The first one I got, it came out in 1996, and when you had brought this topic up, for some reason, it was the first song that popped into my mind. And the problem was I started to go down a wormhole with songs that were so much like this one that were one-hit wonders. And I was like, well, this is going to be a depressing list if every song is like this. That was why I agonized over this, because I was like, all right, maybe I'll save some of those other ones for the best breakup songs of all time or something like that. But my first pick, and hopefully you guys remember this, from 1996, Duncan Sheik, Barely Breathing.
I am barely breathing, and I can't find the air. Don't know who I'm kidding, imagining you care, and I could stand.
Oh, wow.
I totally remember that song.
Now, this song, so I remember it was like 1999. I had first started in radio, and I was just going through a terrible breakup. Every breakup in your 20s is a terrible breakup, right? Like, you just
Of course.
I'm going to marry, that was it, whatever. And this song, I remember driving from North Minneapolis, where I was living, to St. Cloud, where I was working. It's about an hour drive. And I made this CD of just sad ass songs to listen to. Just to make sure I was depressed as hell by the time it was time to go on the air. And Duncan Sheik, Barely Breathing, was on there. And it's still a song today that, man, if it comes on the radio, I'm turning it all the way up and singing.
Oh my God.
That's a good song. I actually like that song a lot. I liked it when it came out. And you're right, though, man. When you listen to those, a lot of people, I think with a lot of songs, they get the melody and the tune, the hook, and they sing along, but they don't realize the actual lyrics. And that song lyrics, they really do fit somebody who's going through a breakup. It has some sad moments in that song.
Yeah. I mean, when he says, I'm barely breathing, I can't find the air. Don't know who I'm kidding, imagining you care. It's like, it's just the perfect, like, I am struggling here.
That's some hard hitting shit.
Ducking and jive and living your life.
Oh yeah. Barely staying above water.
If I'm not mistaken, John, wasn't Duncan Sheik one of the artists at one of the star parties that we did for KDWB back in the day? I feel like I've met them.
I think it's a guy, I think, actually.
Yeah, it's just a dude.
I think he was at Star Party.
What a mellow star party that must have been. One of your artists is Duncan Sheik. The late 90s were a weird time for music. It was like when it was like alternative was kind of dying out, and there was really no like rock music anymore. It kind of became all this forlorn, like Third Eye Blind. Breakfast at Tiffany's, like all these songs. It was all that kind of music.
It's a good opportunity too to point out kind of the qualifications of a one-hit wonder. I don't know if we need to be that literal about like the charts of if they were a one-hit wonder, but you're right. Duncan Sheik, there's only one song I can name by Duncan Sheik, and it's Barely Breathing.
Well, I looked it up to make sure, and Barely Breathing got to number 7 on the U.S. charts, and their other single that they released didn't even crack like the top 30.
Yeah.
And honestly, I just looked it up an hour ago and I still can't remember the name of it. So
that's a good definition. Top 10 and not even top 30 was the next best they did. That absolutely would qualify as a one-hit wonder. I'm surprised that was a top 7 song, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I remember it being a big hit, but I didn't realize it was quite that big.
That was in heavy rotation though in our heyday at KDWB. I remember hearing that like every hour and a half, every 2 hours you would hear Duncan Sheik.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Especially middays.
You do still occasionally hear it too, so it has some life.
The guy still tours, so if you guys if you really want to go relive that Star Party 96, he's out there.
After Duncan brought the room down, we must have had to bring out Quad City GJs or something like that to get everybody. We had to have, right? I don't know.
Casey and JoJo.
Yeah.
I remember that. They were at Star Party. I remember that one.
They were.
Oh, that was Jingle Ball, I think.
They all start to blend together. It's weird. But what a great pick. As soon as you said 1996, I have a song from 1996. So I tightened up. I'm like, am I going to have a match right away? And I didn't, which we'll get to mine later. But John, if you're good, man, what's your first one on the board?
Yeah, when he said 1996, one song popped into my brain right away too, and I wonder if it's the same one that you're going to say. It's not going to be on my list anyway, so but we'll see if it's the one that I'm thinking of. My first one-hit wonder is when this subject got brought up, when we first started thinking about it, it's the first song that popped into my head, and it goes all the way back to the 80s, the early 80s, which were sort of the era of the one-hit wonder, but it's 8675309.
Oh, man.
Jenny. In parentheses, I'm sorry, Jenny's in parentheses. So by Tommy Two-Tone. Sometimes we'll say something is arguably the best or arguably the most popular. No, this is the most well-known phone number in the history of entertainment. It has to be. 8675309. Everybody knows this phone number, right?
Can't dispute that.
Yeah, the song peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts back in 1982, so it goes way back. Tommy Two-Tone, the opposite of Duncan Sheik, Tommy Two-Tone is actually a band. Most people assume that that's a dude, but it's not. And over the years, they claimed that Jenny was somebody that they dated. They claimed that, we did see her number on a bathroom wall, all this, blah, blah, blah. They were kind of trying to keep the legend alive. At the end of the day, they have admitted that the name, the phone number and the name just popped into the guy's head when he's hanging out in his backyard having a cocktail one day. So there's really no cool story behind it, unfortunately. But But what there is a cool story about is there's an entire Wikipedia page about this phone number, because you can imagine having that phone number in the 80s. You were probably getting prank called constantly, right? and there were businesses that tried to obtain this phone number because they wanted to take advantage of that. And it's interesting that even as recently as the last couple of years, there's been lawsuits and people suing each other over the rights to the phone number and using it in different cities. But yeah, 8675309. Everybody knows that number.
You know, that's, to me, when I hear you say that song, obviously I know it. I've heard it a million times in my life, as I'm sure all three of us have. That is such like a pillar song that represents the 80s to me.
Yeah, in the early days of MTV.
That song, I don't like it because of the fact that, like, when all the radio stations started switching from like oldies music from the 60s and 70s and they went to 80s, that one was, it was like, guys, you can dig a little deeper in the 80s catalog.
Yeah.
It was like, good God, we don't need to hear this song every 45 minutes. You know, there's other songs that are good. So when I hear that song, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Like every bar was trying to do it right? And it was just like, it was the same 50 songs at every bar. It was just like, no one was trying to put any work into it. And that's what I instantly think of when I hear that song.
And what I just instantly thought of when I heard Kelly's reaction to your song, John, is your first pick sucks ass.
You dick!
Here's the beauty of putting these lists together, because our Mount Rushmore lists are so specific to an individual topic. This is never going to make my top Mount Rushmore of songs, of 80s songs, of songs with a female in their name. I mean, it's not going to be on any of those lists. But I just thought, you know what? This was such a massive hit, and you still hear the damn thing today. They've redone it in commercials and, you know, shit like that over the years. It's just, it doesn't go away. It just doesn't go away. I have one last quick story, then I'll throw it to you, Mark. You mentioned Duncan Sheik still touring. That put this thought into my head. A friend of mine from back in college, his name is Rob Weatherford. Pretty sure he listens to this. He was originally from Southern California, actually, and he told me a story back when he was back home in California that he saw Tommy Two-Tone play at a festival, and they opened up the show with Jenny, 8675309, and the crowd went nuts, as they would. Biggest hit. They play it right away. Then they go on and play a bunch of songs that nobody knows or no one has ever heard of. Then they close the set. They play Jenny again. And I thought, oh my God, if there's not a bigger sign of a one-hit wonder than that you have to play your song twice in the same set.
Wow.
If I'm wrong about that, I believe that's the story he told me. It was 25 plus years ago that Rob told me this. So if I'm wrong, he'll correct me in the comments. But when he told me that story, I thought it was hilarious. That's a one-hit wonder right there.
Play your hit.
Yes, again and again.
There's a medley of our hit.
Here's a quick question for either of you to answer. The name of that song is the phone number itself, right? And then you said in parentheses is Jenny.
Yeah.
So when there's songs like this that have something in parentheses, are you supposed to say it as part of the song title?
Let's ask the radio personality.
I mean, I would say yes. I usually do. I gotta get the full name out there. I'm trying to think of any song in recent history that has had that, and I can't really think of any.
I just wonder from the artist's point of view, why the parentheses?
Maybe you leave it off sometimes, and sometimes you throw it on. You know, just keep the crowd guessing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's especially when you pointed that out. I kind of stored that and went, God, that's right. That is the official how it like shows up on a title.
I think you usually take a beat and then you say what's in parentheses. So you'd be like 8675309. Jenny.
Of course.
That's
it's
perfectly done.
It's kind of a thing of the past. You mentioned that you can't think of any recent songs. I think that's a thing of the past. Maybe that's a dying art, the parentheses in the song title.
Well, the whole thing's changed. I mean, that's back again when you're buying singles and getting it on your cassette tape. you know?
Good old days.
Well, all right. I'm going to jump into my first pick to keep this rolling, and I am going to go back to 1992. The artist is Darren Kenneth O'Brien. Now, if you don't know who that is, which no one really should, if you do, you're weird. We know him, though, as Snow, and I'm talking about Informer.
Oh,
this song is so damn catchy and good. It is the staple of what makes a one-hit pop song a one-hit pop song.
Informer, you know, say that I'm a snowman, I go glam. I like you bum bum damn. Take the man that say that I'm a snowman, stamp somewhere down the lane. I like you bum bum damn. Informer, you know, say that I'm a snowman.
It did reach #1 on the Billboard charts and it was in 1992 for 7 weeks. Snow, his stage name, his performing name, stands for Super Notorious Outrageous White Boy.
Of course it does.
The album was called 12 Inches of Snow. Clearly, this was the only song that I know of. I can't name another song by Snow.
Oh, I can.
The crazy part about his background was in 1988, Darren Kenneth O'Brien, Snow, he was arrested and involved in an incident at a North York pub where 2 people were stabbed, and he was charged with 2 counts of attempted murder. But rather than telling the authorities who the actual perpetrator was, he served 8 months in jail before he was acquitted on both counts. But why am I bringing this up? It was while he was in jail, he wrote the song Informer and would perform it in front of his inmate friends. Got released, recorded it, and boom, was an international sensation.
Yeah, in the song, he references going to jail and being in jail.
Yeah.
Where he said, "Whip down me pants, look up me bottom." Whoa, that part right there. So you say you can't reference another song by him. There's a song that I played at my wedding by Snow that me and my wife danced to, and it's called "Anything for You."
Really?
And it has some huge names from reggae in it, like Buju Banton, and like all these real heavy reggae singers actually kind of respected Snow a little bit and did Anything for You, the remix with him, which is a song I love. And me and my wife danced to it at our wedding.
That's awesome, because that's kind of what Snow is known for, is he mixed dance hall, reggae, rock, and pop and kind of made it his own little genre. And he just hit it out of the park with Informer, though.
Where's he from?
Canada.
Wow. He definitely has that reggae sort of sound and style. You would not expect that from Canada.
Yeah, you would not expect that from Canada.
Like, you can't get a whiter person to do reggae than Snow from Canada.
Yes.
Especially one who's super and notorious and outrageous.
Yeah, man. He lives up to all those.
Wow. He does.
Just like that, we all got our first one on the board.
I'm embarrassed of my second one, but it is a song that I love, and we can definitely debate about it, whether it was a good song or not. And this wouldn't even be on one-hit wonder songs I love. This would make so many lists of songs that I love for many, many reasons. But 1997 is the year. I'm a nightclub DJ. This song comes out, and man, did I love playing it at every club every time. And of course, I'm talking about Barbie Girl by Aqua. And I'm not even being ironic. When the Barbie movie came out and that song was and I could play that song at like weddings and stuff again. Yeah. Oh man, I was on cloud 9. I love Barbie Girl by Aqua.
Barbie, let's go party.
I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere.
Now, this group is from Norway. They're like a Norwegian dance hall group. They were around since 1989, and then in 1997 they finally hit with Barbie Girl. And they actually ended up getting sued by Mattel for that song because Mattel said that they were painting a bad picture of Barbie, of Ken, of the whole line of toys. Yeah. They said, no, that's defamation. We're not trying to paint a bad picture. So RCA went back and sued Mattel and said, no, this is defamation of character. And so it just got dropped and they got to use Barbie Girl. Wow. And then, of course, the movie comes out and now these guys are back on tour because of the movie, doing a medley of their hit, Barbie Girl.
I think if I'm right, I could be wrong about this, but I think Mattel was involved in the movie making, right?
Yeah.
Or at least to some degree. So, and the fact that the song is in the movie means that Mattel and Aqua must have finally come to an agreement 25 years later. But
it's crazy. If you total up all the views of like every version of this that's on like YouTube, it now has almost 3 billion views because once the Barbie movie came out, it just exploded again.
Of course.
It's got 500 million streams on Spotify. I mean, it's a legitimate one-hit wonder because I could not for $1 million name you another Aqua song. And I legitimately love that song. I'll listen to it just sometimes on Spotify, just for the hell. On my drive home, sunroof open, Capri cigarette,
I don't hate that song.
I'm not going to lie. This again, I always start with a big list and then I have to start just kind of crossing it off. This was on my list.
Oh, dang. Okay. I was embarrassed to say it, and now I feel like I'm amongst friends.
Just because we appreciate it doesn't mean you still shouldn't be embarrassed because there's other people who are going to hear this. This, believe it or not, this extends beyond this three of threesome here. So
All three of us should be ashamed of ourselves.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can share the shame. Yeah, I actually don't hate that song. I'll
No,
admit it.
I don't.
It was catchy when
Awesome.
it came out, and I heard it with the Barbie movie again, and I'm like, yeah, it's still kind of catchy.
I could put it on so many lists. So many lists.
Yeah.
All right, there, Hanson. What do you got there, Bruno?
I'm going to switch up my order a little bit because I don't do them in any particular order, but I gotta move one of mine up here that I wasn't going to talk about yet, because it's also a Norwegian band, and I didn't realize that Aqua was from Norway. Who would have thought that we'd have two bands from Norway on any list in history? Why would that even be mentioned? But this is the band Aha, and it's Take On Me, and it's probably going to fit under the same category for you, Kelly, as as my first pick, Tommy Two-Tone, because Take On Me gets burned out. I mean, it gets just slaughtered, right? I mean, it's just you've heard it a million, well, not a million. It's been played 2 billion times on MTV, by the way, or on YouTube. I'm sorry, which, by the way, is probably why the song was so popular. That music video was absolutely revolutionary for its time. 1985, I think it came out. It was a number one hit in the U.S. It was a number one hit in 12 other countries, and then an additional 7 countries beyond those 12. It was a top 5 hit. So this was a true international massive hit. We talk about the definition of a one-hit wonder. They did have an extra song or two, and I do vaguely remember one of their other songs, but it wasn't anything like this. This was the hit. And when your song is this big of a hit, and your next song charts in the 20s or 30s, then yeah, you're right. That's probably a good definition for number one hit. But the video, I think, is what drove this. I mean, that video was very unique for its era.
100%.
It was yeah, and it was probably not cheap to make at that time either.
Yeah, as soon as you said aha, I just immediately thought of the video and the drawings.
Yeah.
I think it got some love off of TikTok too. I think it recently became some viral TikTok song too, because my son, who's 13, knows every single word to that song.
Wow.
And and the other day we were in the car and he was singing it. I was like, "How do you even know this?" And he said something about it being on TikTok, which is amazing for some of these one-hit wonders that they can fade into obscurity for 20 years, and TikTok can bring them back to being essentially a hit again with people under the age of 18.
That's insane.
Was the video? Do you think the video actually was getting played on TikTok, or just the song popped up? And
I don't
went
know.
around?
I wonder, because the video was so legendary, and it's been parodied 10,000 times in different like Family Guy episodes and everything else, and it's
True.
yeah. That I got to be honest, I still love that song. Like that's one that I never ever got tired of.
The keyboard riff is just so catchy. You remember that. And when I hear the song, I do think of the video to this day. But I'm old enough to remember it playing on MTV the first time around, and MTV pretty much played nothing but it for that whole year.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those songs that if it's like going through my big playlist of like just all my miscellaneous music, I would never skip that song. I like it enough to just go, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to check this out for a second.
2 bands from Norway. Who would have thought?
I didn't know I didn't know Aha was from Norway.
Yeah, they're actually, being a one-hit wonder as we think of them, they're actually a much bigger band in Norway and really throughout Europe. They've had a lot of other hits in as you can imagine, in their home country. But none of them that we would know.
Well, I'm going to stay in my lane for one more pick, meaning I'm going right back to 1992 yet again. And this is kind of why I crowbarred in the criteria about a one-hit wonder. I don't know if a lot of people, they're going to hear this and they're going to probably want to jump down my throat going, they're not a one-hit wonder, but I will defend my pick. I will stand my ground. And my second pick is from, like I said, 1992, from House of Pain. And yes, I'm talking about Jump Around.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I know they had other songs.
Shamrocks and Shenanigans was a hit.
That was kind of the next one, but it's nowhere near the popularity that was Jump Around. Now, House of Pain, so unique. They're not from Norway. They're from Boston. And they're Irish, and they've always made that very well known. I mean, that's just kind of how they carried themselves. But House of Pain was made up of Everlast, Danny Boy, and DJ Lethal. And that song reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 92. But I do believe it is one of the most identifiable openings to a song you will ever hear. And it's so simple, but once you hear that trumpet or that horn, you know what's coming. And it usually is going to mean some bouncing around and jumping. It's so uplifting.
So get out your seat and jump around, jump around, jump around, jump around, jump up and get down.
I'm not a huge like Wisconsin Badger football fan, but at the end of every third quarter, Wisconsin plays Jump Around, and the whole damn stadium is bouncing and jumping.
Yep.
And why that comes to my mind is it wasn't that long ago I saw on ESPN Everlast from House of Pain, the main guy basically. He went to a Wisconsin football game and led the crowd at the end of the third quarter while they played that song. And if you don't know what I'm talking about or haven't seen it, YouTube it. It is a visual spectacle seeing that many people in red at a stadium jumping to that song, and they go bananas over it.
What's
They
the
do.
team that uses Enter Sandman or whatever it is, and they play it, and like Lars was there at one game or something leading them. I forget what team it is. Is it Michigan maybe?
Well, there's a few. I don't think of teams. I think of Mariano Rivera. He was the closer for the Yankees for years. He's probably the best closer in the history of baseball. That's probably not what you're talking about, but yeah, every time he would come in to close a game for the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, they would blare Enter Sandman.
Oh, it's awesome. I love that. I don't even like sports, but I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. Anything that just gets a crowd unified as one. Again, just to show it displays the power of music, and especially if you're a one-hit wonder. I was lucky enough to see them in 1994 at Roy Wilkins Auditorium. It was House of Pain, Cypress Hill, and Funk Dubious.
Oh man, a lot of weed in that crowd.
I left there not feeling the same as when I arrived. It was unavoidable. Whether you wanted to or not, it was unavoidable.
Yeah.
The magic was in the air. I'll put it that way.
I wouldn't have been able to stand that. Ugh.
It was a great concert, though.
Was it 94? I was still pretty pure back then. So
That was right around the time I was becoming unpure. And I think this concert actually played a very big helping hand in that new path of what would become my life.
Yeah.
yeah. And when I DJ a wedding, like as soon as they like every once in a while, if they're really hyped up, I'll drop in "Jump" by House of Pain. I'll only do like the first verse though, because they get really tired of it after a while. But when they hear that
Sure.
trumpet come in or whatever, oh man, they lose their minds for about 30 seconds.
Yep, exactly. It's if you want to get the dance floor packed, I feel like that's one of those songs.
I've seen that ESPN bit you talked about, and that is very cool because it shows the evolution of how the guys at Wisconsin chose that song too, and
Yeah.
and how it became such a tradition for them, and then they do bring Everlast for the first time. He finally gets to go and be part of that in person, see that. That's got to be pretty cool for him. Like he mentions in the video, he's like, we wrote the song 30 years ago, and to come here and experience these kids who were they were born 10 years after that, and here they are, you know, still getting into that song. So I think he was almost emotional about it, how cool it was for him.
Yeah. Again, and that song really did. That's just iconic, and that's a legacy song, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote "Jump Around." I'm from House of Pain.
Yeah.
Pick number 3 back at
Yeah,
you,
we're
Kelly.
halfway through.
All right. So this one, Mark, when you and I were talking yesterday, this one just popped into my head because this totally changed the kind of music that I like. Like, I think I was listening to hair bands up until I heard this song for the first time. It could have been this, or it could have been MC Hammer. One of the two kind of brought me away from hair metal. But it was back in 1988, and it was nothing like I had ever heard before. And it was on the radio, and it was probably the first time that a song like this had ever been on the radio. And I'm talking about Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. It Takes Two.
I wanna rock right now. I'm Rob Bass and I came to get down. I'm not internationally known, but I'm known to rock the microphone because I get stupid.
Oh, great song.
And when I heard that song, like this was probably, you got to think back to 1988. There wasn't just a lot of hip hop that was fit for radio play. And it didn't even, I mean, to call it a one-hit wonder, it didn't even do that well. It only got to 30 on the Hot 100. But on the I think there was a chart called Radio Dance Charts back then or something. It got all the way up to number 3. And it was
Wow.
just, to me, it was exposing hip hop to a group of people that probably didn't even know that that was happening somewhere. And that was me. Like, I was hair metal band kid, wearing a jean jacket with the sleeves cut off. And then I heard this song. I was like, nope, now it's zipper pants and, Chuck Taylors. It literally changed me that much when I heard it.
Your entire fashion sense changed in one day, right there.
Right. And it's funny. So this song meant so much to me when I went to go work down in Austin, Texas at Kiss FM down there. They'll send radio stations platinum records. So you'll see a lot of program directors with platinum records hanging in their office. Well, this was a platinum record that was hanging on the wall of Kiss FM. And when I quit, they told me to come back at night to grab all my stuff out of my desk. And I had maybe had a couple of beers before I went back in there to grab all my stuff. And oddly enough, it was just me and an intern in there. They had an intern making sure that I would take all my stuff and leave. And on the way out, I said, dude, if I take this plaque, will you tell anybody? I was like, can you please just let me have this Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock platinum record? And I took it, and I never got in trouble for it. And it hangs in my basement till this day, 30 years or 25 years later. It's one of my prized possessions, too.
Here's what's amazing is, yes, all three of us agreed Aqua Barbie Girl was, we're going to let you slide with it because we
Thank
get
you.
it. This is such a rebound. I love this song, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably like my fifth. And you're right. When you said, like you, and definitely John's an old, headbanger from the 80s with his jean jacket and smoking Winston's.
That was last week.
But when you're right, when I think of that late 80s scene, when it comes to this, there's kind of three artists, and this will be kind of a spoiler that I don't have one of them on my list. I think of Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock.
Mm-hmm.
I think of MC Hammer, and I think of Young MC.
Yeah. Well, that almost made my list. Young MC almost made the list.
Exactly, because Bust a Move.
No, I get it. But this one made me research how hip hop was made, like how they were looping beats and sampling beats. Because the song that they sampled is like an old 19s, that woo, that's in throughout the whole song.
Yeah.
They sampled that from like some song in 1972. I was like, how the hell did they do that? So it like made me want to like learn more about hip hop. It changed my life. It honestly did. It's weird to say, but it did.
Here's one more. Just as we were talking, add Tone Loc to that list.
Oh,
but he
yeah.
had two hits, not one.
Right.
He had, Wild Thing and Funky Cole Medina. Speaking of sampling, by the way, one of my favorite things about, not to get off track about a non-pick, but the song by Tone Loc, Funky Cole Medina,
Yep.
samples one of my favorite bands, a guitar riff from the song Christine 16, band is Kiss.
That's awesome. I didn't even know that's where that came from. I knew it was a sample, but I had no idea from where.
Well,
Yeah.
and his other song, Wild Thing, samples one of my favorite bands, Van Halen. So, I mean, that's what he did. And I think in both cases, he had to pay a lot of money to those bands for
Yeah.
I think so.
because they didn't get prior approval, whatever the hell I'm trying to say. Well, interesting thing too about Tone Loc, again, not to be too far off base. You mentioned MC or Young MC. Young MC wrote, I believe, both of Tone Loc's hit songs. Did you know that?
Did not know that.
So
Wow.
in addition to Young MC's one hit, he has those two songs that he's collecting checks on to this day. So he did okay for himself. And then back to the Rob Bass thing. First of all, he's not internationally known.
He's known to rock the microphone.
Exactly. Bingo. Hoping somebody would finish that. Maybe because of my radio connection and just my music nerd, philosophy. I've always think of him as a two-hit wonder because I always like the Joy and Pain song as
Yeah,
well.
I love Joy and Pain too. Yeah,
But that one was certainly a minor hit, not nearly as lasting as
Yeah.
as It Takes Two. So great pick.
I want to say it was 2 years ago. I was up in Duluth around Christmas, and you know how they have that Bentleyville setup that's right there on the next to the lake. But we weren't there. Actually, no, I'm mixing that up. It's normally where they have Bentleyville, but we were there in the summer where it was that tour that had Rob Bass, Young MC, Vanilla Ice, and you basically had a ticket to the show because of where our hotel was, and you could sit out by the pool and by the fire pit, and you're right across again this little channel from Lake Superior, and there's the stage,
Man.
more than 100 yards from where we were. And so my son and I were cruising around on those little electric scooters. And it was a beautiful night out, and just listening to this free music, and it's so the lane of where we're at right now with these artists that we're talking about. And it was so cool to hear Young MC and rob bass. Because even my son, he got into it. He's like, who sings these? I like it. And it was him hearing them live, and he dug it. It was really cool.
I remember I met Tone Loc. This probably would have been 15 years ago now. So he was still on a, he wasn't anything anyone really cared that much about anymore. And he just looked like this old man who wanted nothing. Like, you could tell it was just a money grab. The only reason he was out there was a money grab. And like, even the picture that I have with him, he looks like he hates everything about life. My wife always laughed at that picture. One, she didn't know who the hell it was because just looked like an old man. And two, she was like, God dang, he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
I think John and I actually have a photo of Tone Loc too. It was backstage at Last Chance Summer Dance. And now that you say that, he does not look very thrilled.
No. He's like, just give me my check and let me get the hell out of here. I'll go out there and do my 2 hits, and let's not pretend that anybody wants anything else.
Yeah. He knows his place.
He's aware of his surroundings.
He is.
That's a great pick.
Because you guys both referenced the 80s rock, and Mark likes to poke fun at my 80s rock heritage, that I unlike you, Kelly, I still appreciate that music. I didn't shy away from it. I embrace, I don't have the hair to back it up, but I do embrace the hair band era. And my next pick is a one-hit wonder from that era. And it's a song that gets played a lot today, still on rock radio. It's by the band Autograph, and it's Turn Up the Radio.
Oh, man.
It came out in 1985. It wasn't necessarily a massive hit on the Billboard charts, but because it was a lasting song and it was their only song, I can't name another song by them. And I like to think I know a lot about that era of music, and I do not know a second song by Autograph. And this is years before bands like Guns N' Roses, Poison, Bon Jovi, they weren't a thing yet. So this was, the early days of that hair metal sound. And it was a big MTV hit. They say in the song to turn up the radio, and that's what I do when it comes on. I mean, they're basically asking me to do it. It's been in commercials. It's been in movies. It was in Guardians of the Galaxy, which is kind of cool. Oh, I was also going to mention this. It was in the video game Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which Mark and I talked about in our Mount Rushmore of video games episode. So if anyone wants to go back and listen to that, we like to do little throwbacks to old episodes. So it gives me a chance to plug that. But yeah, I mean, not necessarily a favorite all-time song of mine, just a a catchy banger. What are you going to do?
Now, in your global travels, have you ever met Autograph?
No, never met him, never saw him.
You don't have their autograph then?
All right. Well, I'm going to end this early.
Yeah.
Sorry we wasted your time, Kelly.
Boo.
But that wouldn't be a hair band, though, right? Like, that wasn't...
They were.
Okay. But before hair bands were hair bands.
Yeah, so it is before, like I mentioned, the Poisons and those bands came along, but the hair bands that were popular were Rat and Motley Crue. There were bands out there doing that kind of music, but it was sort of the second half of the 80s when the hair band explosion happened, like Headbangers Ball and all that, stuff. But if you Google a picture of Autograph in 1985, there's no denying that they were a hair band.
Now I got to do that.
I hear this song and it makes me think of one other band that would be like neck and neck battling for position if this is what you went with. We Built This City by Jefferson Starship as like a very similar type rock anthem from that era.
It's a rock song. It's a rock and roll song. It's not a hair band song by any stretch. And also to be an asshole and correct you, that was by Starship. That was not by Jefferson Starship. So.
Thanks for correcting me, asshole.
By the way, one of the worst songs ever. I mean, that song was just absolute trash. It's just ass. Like, the only reason I ever listened to it is because I'm like, I fucking hate it. Like, I'm just like, I'm full of rage.
You're not alone. I think that there have been studies, and it has been proven to be one of the worst songs of all time. Absolutely, of the 80s, but maybe one of the worst songs of all time.
We Built This City.
You know what I wish somebody had, though, because I was listening to it the other day just because it was pissing me off, and it was on Cool 108 or one of the Minneapolis radio stations. And do you remember? Maybe you don't remember this, but when they used to play it on KS95, the part where the DJ's talking in the center, they had Dan Donovan do it. You guys remember Dan Donovan?
Oh yeah, he's a legend.
Minneapolis radio legend. And I was like, why don't they have that? Some radio station somewhere has to have the version with Dan Donovan doing the speaking part in the center. I would be playing, like if I was on Jack FM or Cool 108 or any of these stations that play that, that's the version. I would get my hands on it somehow. KS95 has to have it somewhere.
Yeah, they have to.
Wow. Dan Donovan, he's notorious for the urban legend, which I think is a real story. He actually smoked a joint with John Lennon.
Probably.
Yeah.
The heyday, the glory years of radio where, DJs were like kings.
Yeah. Yeah.
It got you that kind of access where you're hanging out with John Lennon and Yoko burning doobs.
I actually met Yoko Ono one time, if you can believe that.
Wow.
That was
Did you really?
a strange meeting. I was walking past our break room and she was just sitting in there. This is when I worked in Austin. I was like, what the hell? That's Yoko Ono sitting in our break room?
Wow. Random.
I don't even think I took a picture with her. I didn't even care. I was like, whatever. Who cares?
The biggest destroyer of the biggest band ever.
Yeah. I think she was promoting her art or something at the time. I don't know.
She's a weird one, that's for sure. Before I leave Autograph real quick, I was going to mention this because I wanted to put a hairband type band on my list. And that's the only one I could kind of come up with that had a good song that still holds up, that actually was a true one-hit wonder. If you Google one-hit wonders, Rat actually comes up as a list on as one of those bands, because they only had the Round and Round was their only like top 40 hit. But here, Rat is a band that in the mid to late 80s were headlining arenas. I mean, they had a bunch of rock songs. They had a lot of MTV plays. So that is, if there's lists that actually call them a one-hit wonder, which I think is a load of crap.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put Rat into this mix.
No, not at all.
There's a good documentary on Paramount Plus right now about hair bands, and Rat, the lead singer of Rat, is in that. And it's pretty interesting, like how they saw a bunch of bands that like Wasp and stuff, and they were like, we actually would like some females at our show. So they were kind of they kind of led the charge of like starting to wear makeup and tight pants, and not because like Wasp would have like saw blades on their crotch, and it was just ridiculous. I mean, chewing on liver it was just stupid, man.
That is a great documentary. I watched that too. And in Wasp, he would throw meat into the crowd. And
he just hitting people with roast at the show.
Yes.
You go to a Wasp concert and a meat raffle breaks out. Well, that's a good pick, man. I'll jump back in then, okay? And I'm gonna go back to 1996. This is one of those songs that immediately came to my head about this topic, and it very much represents the era in which I worked in a top 40 radio station, but I legitimately love this song. It's Return of the Mac by Mark Morrison. It is one of the best groove, just chill. It gets you, like, this is the kind of song, if you're feeling shitty, just play Return of the Mac, and I have a feeling by the end of it, you're smiling again, and you're back on track to where you should be, mentally. It's just a cool vibe, happy song. Now, this song peaked at number 2 in 96, and it stayed on the Billboard charts for 40 weeks. And this was a slammer, man. Like, this was a big, big hit. It was kind of the end of him. Like, because of that song, he ended up in the year 2000, he signed a 5-year deal with Death Row Records. And to the best of my knowledge, we never heard from Mark Morrison again under that label. So thanks, Suge.
That's a song that, like, for years after it was a hit, would pack the dance floor at the club. And I'm talking a decade after it was on the radio, it would still pack. Even today, if you got the right crowd, 30 plus, people love that song. And here's a fun fact about that. That scratching part, that record scratching part at the end that every DJ would pretend they were doing? That's actually called the Return of the Mac scratch. Like, that's a style of scratching known for that song.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the DJ who did that, they named that style of scratch after him, or after that song.
He was actually born in West Germany in 1972, so that would make him, 52 years old now?
Wow, he was young when he came out with that then.
But again, I love that song. I don't have a whole lot to say about it other than I love that damn song, and I'm not apologetic about it.
Well, I'm kind of waiting for you to sing your little famous line from that song.
What I do.
There you go. Used to sing that around the offices all the time. Made us want to slap you.
That's probably why I got shown the door.
Yeah, probably. That song, there's kind of a trilogy of songs that are from around the same era. We'll give or take a couple of years that I always put together, and they're not necessarily similar songs, but in my brain they kind of are in this little trilogy. It's Return of the Mac, This Is How We Do It, and Hadaway's song, What Is Love? It's like those three, they all were one-hit wonders as far as I know. And they all came out, give or take a year or two, I'm guessing. And we played the shit out of them on KDWB, all three of those songs.
Just huge dance club hits, man. All just back. You play those three in a row, there's no way that those patrons are going home pissed off that night.
Yeah.
Again, I hate to go back to the DJing weddings thing, but This Is How We Do It still packs the floor 35 years later or whatever the hell it's been.
God.
Yeah.
Montel Jordan.
Tip up your cup. Throw your hands up.
All right, here's your anchor pick, Kelly Jordan.
Boy, this is the last one, and I brought this up because I just watched a YouTube video about this the other day because I was like, what the hell did happen to those guys, and why didn't they ever have another song? And it was between this song and you remember that song, You Got the Music in You? I almost did that song as my last one because I've always loved that song, and I love the story behind that song, that dude didn't want to come out with any more records. Like, he did that. He hated the music industry, never wanted to come out. These guys tried to keep releasing hits, but it just never happened for them again. I'm talking about 1999, the brother and sister team named after his high school buddy from Canada, Len, Steal My Sunshine.
Great song. That is a great
I love that song.
Yeah.
And the story behind the song is, so it was a brother and sister who are in the video. They sing the song together. They hadn't talked in like 7 months. And he's at a rave and he hears this song. I wrote it down. Oh, you know the old 1972 disco song, More, More, More. How do you like it? So that song samples that. So he heard that at a rave. He was drugged out of his mind, goes back to the studio, makes that loop for the song, calls his sister and says, I wrote a song. Will you record it with me? Will you sing the female parts on it? She's like, sure, we haven't talked in 7 months, but whatever, I'll come do it. And then we never have to see each other again. And then sure enough, it just explodes and becomes this massive hit. And they kept making music up to 2005, Len did, but obviously never even came close to the success of Steal My Sunshine. And there was a lot of addiction issues with him. Like he said, he didn't even remember filming the video for Steal My Sunshine. He was like, we were drunk as hell riding on scooters. He was like, the liquor budget was more than the filming budget. He was like, it was just stupid. And that is boating music to me right there. Like, you put that on in the boat and you cannot be in a bad mood.
I know it's up for me.
If you steal my sunshine,
Making sure I'm not in too deep.
if you steal my sunshine,
Keep me bursting on my
Great way to describe that song, boating music. I love that.
Like I said, I had between that and You Got the Music in You, and I was just like, nah, I got to go with Len because it's just, to me, it's a better song. It's just a better song.
We've got a massive list of episode ideas that we'll eventually get around to. And I'm not sure if Summer Songs is on that list, but it should be. But that would be a good summer song.
Hell yeah.
Summer song. Maybe next summer, little teaser. Maybe we'll do something like that. But the video gets some probably unwanted attention because the brother and sister seem a little close in that video.
I was shocked to find out they were brother and sister in that YouTube.
Yes.
I was like, oh, gross.
I think most people were.
They were hammered off their ass, so who knows, like. and we're from Canada, so I don't know.
Yeah, drunken Canadians, crazy things happen up north, right?
They got different customs.
They do.
The hell's in those Molsons?
Yeah.
I do know that, like, he took it really hard that they could never write another song. Like, to him, it was just like, damn, how come I can't recreate what we had? But that's the one hit wonder,
I remember reading this about Sugar Ray and Mark McGrath specifically. They set out specifically with that goal in mind, is to be a one-hit wonder. But then they ended up like crushing it for like 5 years, with a bunch of hits.
Yeah.
So they overshot their mark. But
I always say that, like, you could tour nightclubs making probably $5,000 a night, or you do two gigs a week with your one hit. Man, you can make $150,000 a year just doing little nightclubs,
And it's always going to be in front of people who are like really excited to see you because they can't wait for you to play your hit.
Hopefully play it twice.
That's how it was when I went and saw PM Dawn, who I almost put PM Dawn on this list, but they had a good 3 or 4. They had 3 hits. And I couldn't do that to them. They're my favorite group of all. The other platinum record I have hanging on my basement wall is PM Dawn. But when I went and saw them in concert, there was maybe, 500 people there. We all paid $30 to get in. Yeah, they made a decent little. They probably take some of the bar. You know, they made a decent little killing that night.
I wanted Mark to be a big PM Dawn fan, but he wouldn't bite.
That's the way it goes, I guess.
That's the way it goes, I guess.
That's the way it goes.
So anyway, enough of the song lyrics. So I guess that's back to me then. So you talk about wanting to write one hit. This is a song that I would have liked to have written, although the guys that had performed it didn't write it. But it's an old song. The origins of the song go back to the 1930s, but it was recorded in 1977 and by a band called Ram Jam, and it's Black Betty.
Oh yeah.
So Black Betty, it's like an old blues folky song. The lyrics are from, and these guys, Ram Jam, they were a band in New York City, believe it or not. They don't look or sound like a band from New York City, but that's where they were based. They recorded this song. It became a massive hit, and they were only even together as a group for about 2 years. They weren't even really a band. They were kind of thrown to a bunch of musicians that kind of came together and did a record and kind of all went their own ways and never really recreated it. You'll never see like a Ram Jam reunion tour. They're not playing the festival circuit or anything like that. Some of the guys are probably not even alive anymore, but this song, man, I mean, it's just a rockin' song. It's got a rock sound. It kind of has almost like a dance beat to it. I mean, it's a pretty good song for that era.
Whoa, Black Betty, bam lamb. Whoa, Black Betty, bam lamb. Black Betty had a child, bam lamb. The damn thing gone wild. Bam lamb said a word not of mine. Bam lamb, the damn thing gone blind.
Countless TVs and commercials and movies over the years. Here's the thing about this band. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but if there is a video for this song on YouTube, if you have not seen this video, you have to go watch it. Pause this episode, watch the video, come back to this moment in time so I can talk to you about this video because it's mind-blowing. These guys look like a bunch of Leonard Skinner roadies that locked up the band in the closet and picked up the instruments. All right. They look like a case of Mountain Dew came to life and picked up a guitar. All right. These guys look like a love child after a Camaro had a three-way with an above-ground pool and a pair of jean shorts.
Oh, okay.
Now is open mic night here or
Yes,
what?
it is.
What the hell is this?
This band and this song made this list. It's a good song, but I made this list because I had to rip on that video. These guys, it's shocking when you hear that song and then you see what they look like.
It's amazing how cool that song sounds, and then when you see them, the video you're talking about, you're like, no way. This is like some spoof. This is like a parody thing. Is this, a joke? But no, it's real. And before you brought up the video, again, it's kind of, I love this song. I love how they used it in the movie Blow, by the way.
I was just about to say that.
So perfectly timed. But if you've ever stumbled upon this on YouTube where a bunch of those hillbillies like play on banjos and they'll do like Thunderstruck by AC/DC, if you know what that video looks like, this Ram Jam video is just like that, but it's not trying to be funny.
It's the real band.
It's the real video and the real band.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, do you know what's the meaning behind the band's name, Ram Jam? Do you know?
Oh, no clue.
Or is it just a random band name?
Hell of a question. I should have looked that up. I have no clue. That's a really good question.
I actually like the song version better, and then this may be sacrilege saying this, by the group Spider Bait.
Who?
Spider Bait, it sounds a little more modern. Exactly. Exactly. Just they're hanging out with Ram Jam, touring the country. They each come out and do the same song and then get the hell off stage.
Spider Bait?
Yeah, there's a version by Spider Bait, and it just sounds a little bit more modern. Like I'll throw that in like a mix sometimes. Like if I'm doing a country music mix, I'll sometimes throw that version in there because it's just on that 4/4 beat, and it sounds so good.
Interesting. I'll look that up.
Well, I'm going to end this sucker. I think it's probably my favorite song, which I know will be kind of surprising, of my list of 4. I wanted to end on a banger, as they say. The artist is Andrew Federley Wilkes Cryer, also known as Andrew WK. And he came out with the song in 2001 from the album I Get Wet. The song is Party Hard. This song is bad ass.
I don't even think I know this song.
Oh my God. Okay, you're gonna have to look it up. I know you've heard it. You just probably don't know you heard it.
You'll know it.
VH1 named Party Hard the 89th best hard rock song of all time.
What?
So there's my tip of the cap to VH1. I definitely agree with you.
I'd hate to be the band that came in 90th.
This song it's heard in these movies, just to name a few: Stealing Harvard, Secret Life of Pets, Monsters University, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Hmm.
This I thought was a pretty cool little fun fact on it too. Party Hard was the goal song when the Pittsburgh Penguins would score a goal in their own arena. And they used that song in 2015 and 16, which is the 2 years they won back-to-back Stanley Cups.
Oh,
So don't tell me I'm making stuff up.
they should get back
But-
to it then.
Well, I think they did. They switched songs and then lost the next year, and then they went back to it. I don't think they've won since. It was in like Madden 2003. It was in Madden again 2024, believe it or not. This song impacted me. And John and I were working together when this song came out. And I'll never forget the feeling it gave me, because I'm one of these jokers that I literally fall asleep every night with the TV on. But I'll never forget the night I randomly was introduced to Andrew WK, because I had fallen asleep and I woke up when Carson Daly's late, what was it called? Last Call with Carson Daly.
Yeah.
That was now on. And I woke up just in that moment where Carson Daly says, "And I'll welcome our musical guest, Andrew WK." And all of a sudden he started playing Party Hard. I sat up in my bed and just went, "This shit rocks." It made me like want to start my day, and it's like 1 a.m. And the dude is insane looking. Like if you Google the album cover, "I Get Wet," it's just him standing there with a black background, and all you see is his face, and he's got blood absolutely running down his nose, down the side of his face. And I read, to make that video cover or the album cover, he took a brick and smashed his nose.
What?
And then it started to bleed. And then it didn't bleed enough, so they actually ran to the butcher store and got like animal's blood.
Gross.
And then that's what you see in the photo.
What?
But he really did hit his own nose with a brick.
They should have went to the butcher first before he smashed his face.
Yeah, the sequence was backwards, that's for sure.
Who's the genius photographer?
That is rock and roll.
See, it wouldn't be rock and roll. But like even the music video for Party Hard, he's wearing like white dirty jeans, a white dirty t-shirt, old white like tennis shoes, sneakers, and he looks like a hot mess. That's sweaty. He looks like he hasn't bathed in months, but he's performing this killer song.
I feel like I'm missing out by not knowing this song. Like I'm like, what was I doing in 2001 that I didn't know that this song even existed?
I mean, it kind of had like a slow growth to it, but that like right away when that was his debut album and he was on, and I think back in the day that was kind of Carson Daly's thing. He liked introducing like upcoming bands and artists, and it was on so damn late that I don't think anyone really cared. I know it's a random one, but again, this is my list, and I know I'm bumping it for stuff like Rob Bass and Sir Mix-a-Lot.
I'll tell you this, Kelly. By not knowing it, you're really not missing anything. This moment right here.
you?
This is not your. This is not the Rob Bass moment where you're going to go out and you're going to change. You're going to start wearing blood on your face. This is not a big fashion. This is not a big moment in your life. You don't have to worry about changing your whole look by learning who Andrew WK is.
I do want to see the video now, though, for him smashing, or the cover of the album with him smashing himself in the face with a brick.
Yeah, you don't see it. You just see the aftermath of what his face looked like after he did it. But I read that he actually was that big of a lunatic. I was telling John this back in the day when it came out. I remember reading that, but the album cover was actually banned in a few European countries because they thought it was like portraying cocaine abuse because his nose just dripping blood and because of how he looks. He clearly looks like he's strung out on something on this album cover.
Not violent. Banned for the cocaine possibility.
Yeah, just burned his septum to the ground.
This is what a great list. I love everybody's picks. Honest to God, like there wasn't really a stinker in the bunch. And if you guys try to go Andrew WK and reverse tables on me, I'll suplex one of you.
I don't know enough about it.
Suplex.
I am going to follow up with Kelly though to make sure he listens to the song, because then I at least want him to know like what page and what mindset I'm in when I'm saying "Party Hard" by Andrew WK.
I got an hour drive home, so I got plenty of time to load it up and rock out.
Oh, we'll test your speakers in your vehicle, because you're gonna be banging it.
One thing we like to do, especially when we have a guest on, is to give you a chance to throw out a couple of honorable mentions. So if you did have a long list and there's a couple that just missed your list, you can kind of let us know what they are. You don't need to go into details necessarily, but if you got anything else you want to shout out about.
Well, Bittersweet Symphony by The Verb was one that I had on there.
Nice.
Good song.
And they obviously, we know the story behind that. They sampled the Rolling Stones and got sued into oblivion and couldn't afford to ever put out another song again.
Yeah.
Steven Tyler from Aerosmith said that was, in his mind, the perfect song, the most perfect song ever created was Bittersweet Symphony.
That's interesting. I like the video too. The guy's just bullishly walking down the street, pushing people out of the way as he's singing the song.
The other honorable mention would have been "You Get What You Give," which I was calling "You Got the Music in You," but by New Radicals. I've always liked that song, "You Get What You Give," but again, that guy came out and said, "I hate the music industry. I don't want to do this anymore." Wow. And he walked away. He didn't ever want to even try. He's got a monstrous hit that gets played on the radio still. I mean, god dang, it probably gets a few thousand spins a day across the country. So he's probably still making a decent living off of that one song.
Do you have any honorable mentions, John? I mean, I have a bunch I want to bring up, but I'm not going to drone on and on about it, but
I had a bunch too. I'm just going to mention a couple real quick. One of them was going back to the 80s again, man. It's a theme with my songs, I guess. It's the Matthew Wilder song, "Break My Stride." That song is so catchy. I just love that song. It's just, when that song comes on, you just smile. You just naturally smile.
That's a great pick. And what band was he a part of again? Wasn't he Fleetwood Mac or something like that?
No. I think he was just a guy that he was his own. He was you're thinking of Lindsey Buckingham maybe, but who was in Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, I'm thinking of Holiday Road. Yeah.
Yeah. This one was "Ain't Nobody Gonna Break My Stride."
Right. Great song.
And the interesting thing about him is he only had the one hit, but he went on to be a producer. He actually was the producer on No Doubt's massive breakthrough album, "Tragic Kingdom," the one that had all their first hits. He produced that, so he kind of had his own second career. But then the other one I was going to mention is more of a Minneapolis connection, not necessarily because I love this song, but it was a massive hit. It was the Funky Town by Lip Sync. There's the Minneapolis connection with that song.
I didn't know there was a Minneapolis. What's the connection?
Well, Lip Sync was the name of the band, and it wasn't even really a band. It was a guy. It was a producer guy who put the song together, and he brought in he's from Minneapolis. He still lives in the Twin Cities, as far as I know. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and that's why they only had one hit, is because he wasn't necessarily a touring band. He was a producer that brought in people to play these instruments, and he got a local Minneapolis singer who sings on it, and they did the song, and it became one of the last big disco songs.
I think it was on VH. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I think on VH1, when I saw One Hit Wonders of All Time, the guy who wrote the song said he wrote it because he hated Minneapolis. He couldn't wait to get out of Minneapolis. That's why the whole song is about getting the hell out of it.
Yeah, "Won't You Take Me to Funky Town," which in his mind was anywhere but Minneapolis. And the funny thing is after that, in the early 80s, the Minneapolis sound kind of kicked in with Prince and the time, and it became a lot more cool place to be musically, I think, after he did that.
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm going to, real quick, this is a story I have to mention just because it was a song that it had hit my radar. I didn't go with it, obviously, but I got to bring it up just because John and I have kind of a funny story about this band. And as far
I already know what you're going to say.
Do you really?
I've retold this story so many times.
I have too.
I think I know what you're going to say. I'll let you go.
Well, okay, I'll get it out of the way just to see if you're on my page. The band is Bowling for Soup.
Oh, I love Bowling for Soup.
Is that what you were thinking, John?
Yeah. They had a couple of hits, but I wouldn't necessarily call them a one-hit wonder. But
I know, and you're right.
You just want an excuse to tell the story.
But their biggest hit was 1985.
Right.
It is a great song. So they're like this punk pop rock band, but they were at Kelly Last Chance Summer Dance, the outdoor music shows we used to do at Shakopee at Canterbury Park. And one night Bowling for Soup was, one of the bands, and they certainly weren't the headliner, but they were close to the end of the show. And after they performed, Canterbury is a huge, venue. It's a huge facility. It's a horse track. So, where we would set up this giant outdoor music festival type stage, it was built, for 30, 40,000 people to be in the field. Well, after Bowling for Soup set, there was something through their record label where they were going to do meet and greets for VIPs from like their fan club. So when they got done performing, they needed rides out to this tent area, which is about, I don't know, a quarter mile, maybe, John, if it's something like that.
Yeah.
Away from where the backstage area was. Now, why this is all relevant to the funny part of the story, their bassist weighed probably 450, 500 pounds at the time. One of the biggest people I've ever seen in person, quite frankly. And somehow he had enough stamina to get through a show.
Yeah.
And he hops on. It took 2 golf carts because he took up one with me. And then John had the other 3 members of the band on his cart. We drive them out to their little record label booth to do autographs. Well, while we're there, we were instructed to stay there with them so that we could give them a ride back to the backstage trailer area where they'd get back in their ride and probably back to the airport. As we're waiting for Bowling for Soup, their fans hadn't shown up yet to the signing. So we're waiting. Well, we get called that we're needed and required to be somewhere. So we left them. We left Bowling for Soup a quarter mile away from the backstage area. And when we got back and did the next task we had to do, it kind of hit us. How is that guy going to make it back?
Yeah. That's a long walk. That's a long walk.
We've always had this ongoing joke that he's still wandering around Shakopee. So again, sorry for the story, but
that's good.
When we're talking one-hit wonders, and I know that toes the line, are they, aren't they? But I wanted to share that story. I do have to do a quick shout out to one of my sports baseball dads who I've gotten to be really tight with. His name is DJ Travis Perkins, and I know if he would have been and had any say in the matter on a one-hit wonder, this joker would have picked Timmy T. One More Try.
Oh, hell yeah.
One more try. I didn't know how much I loved you. One more try. Let me put my arms around you.
He has it in his jukebox in his garage where we often have adult beverages and cigars. And the first time I stumbled upon that song being in his jukebox, I couldn't not give him shit.
Dude, that's a banger, though. That might be the perfect breakup song. I take back what I said about Duncan Sheik earlier.
That is a great breakup song.
That's a slow dance, skate land, hold hands, give her a lit up rose type song.
And then she skates off with another guy, and that's how that song goes right there.
But no, in all seriousness, Kelly, I know, again, we go back a long way. It's just cool to have you on this because I know you're just such a fan of music and music. And it like I said, when we kicked this thing off, it's such a part of your identity, I think, is the fact that you have all these ties to music, and especially through your radio career and just your outside life.
Man, it was my pleasure. Anytime you guys want to do another one, if I fit the bill, man, I'm ready. I'm willing to come back. It's fun.
I love it. John, you got anything?
Nope. Just tell everybody to check out whatsyourmountrushmore.com for old episodes and follow us on the socials and subscribe and all that fun crap.
I think the big thing is just subscribe and follow. Really, that's the one message I want to make sure we're getting across, because we are starting to get traction, and I love it. Like it's not now uncommon where I will get random texts from people just sending me their pics throughout the day, any day now. This literally happens, and I love it. That being said, Kelly Jordan, and make sure you listen to Kelly Jordan mornings up in St. Cloud on Wild Country 99. He's killing it up there.
Grand Forks and Fergus Falls, too. Syndicated.
And Kelly, this one's for you, man. I'm going to thank our sponsor for this episode. A special shout out and thanks to Aiton Chevrolet.
Oh, the good old days.